What is up, fellow sickos? I am Dan Valley coming at you with my certified D lumberjack co-host, Mr. Grant Hughes, just wearing the backers cap right now. Super trendy and cool if you're watching on YouTube. We're here with, I don't know if it's long awaited. I think we only teased it for a few days, but we're doing a mega, which NBA player would you rather have on your team for the next 5 years? We'll get into the considerations, but you submitted, we got a ton of answers or submissions. We're going to see how many we can get to. I've chosen the best 50, and we're just going to try and go through couplings. Before we get to that, though, very quickly, promo code Sicko Mode at our merch shop will get you 20% off of everything, no matter how much you spend, no matter how many items you get. We got cool shit. Like, you can get these in hats, but these designs are also in shirts. Proud Sicko, which has been, I'm wearing a sweatshirt right now that has that. Grant's got on the...
I don't know if this is even in the shop anymore, but I do have the Hardwood Knocks hat on.
Yeah, it's for the Sickos hat and our EST. That's actually been the most popular design we've sold, Grant. No one wants I have a Sicko Mode. It's up there too. Again, you can get these all enclosed. But, and if I remember, I'll throw the QR code on screen. Some people like that. But promo code Sicko Mode at SIKOMODE. That's the best way to support the show. But enough self-promotion. Unless I do want to know, though, about my co-host and how he is doing. So, Grant, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. I just, since we're going to make it a habit to comment on my shirts, I don't do this purposely, but I really am blending in with the background again of my shirt. I feel like this is a blue shirt on a kind of blue-gray background. So I'm mostly invisible. But you know, the takes will be so visible.
That's the aesthetic, though, is you want it only to slightly differentiate from your decor so that when you are selling items and putting it on TikTok and linking out to your Amazon shop, obviously, like that's the new wave of influencerdom or something.
Sounds
how
great.
You feel about this exercise, though?
I'm excited because of the sheer breadth of like options we've been given. Like some are, yeah, that's a conversation we should have, and then some are like, I have not thought of that ever before. So comparing these two players, so that I think it should be good. As usual, it will be very difficult for us to move quickly through the ones that should be moved through quickly.
Yeah, and by the way, you'll get priority if you're in our Discord when we ever run these types of exercises. So join our Discord. The link to that's in the podcast and YouTube description. So looking at this, though, before we really get into it, one, the order is for the most part random. Grant doesn't know what's coming at all in what order. I don't know because I randomized them, except I did try to block. We have a lot of LaMelo, Zion, and I think Paolo Banchero's in there a bunch. There's also sort of a McCain run we have. So I have ordered those or tried to together, but otherwise there's going to be landmines about players maybe you don't care about, or maybe some people haven't heard of. That's why you should stick around for the entire thing. Is there any sort of approach when you're looking at these? I think that one of the things that I got asked the most about is how are you considering contracts in this 5-year thing? Because I think we talked the most about age, obviously talent, skill set, fit. And we're both going to look at it as, hey, we're trying to build a team to win as much as possible in the next 5 years. So that's pretty straightforward. But how do you factor in contracts to the equation? Is it sort of the one, I think the biggest differentiator for me is if someone's on a rookie scale versus if someone's on a mega deal already, that might be a bigger factor. Otherwise, I don't know how much that it actually, like, I guess if someone's on a bad deal, but like we have, the whole point of this exercise, we have very few of just this person's on a contract that sucks. So you would clearly pick this person anyway.
Yeah, it's case by case. I think just as long as you stay true to the idea being you're trying to put this player on a team and win as much as you can, like you sort of can't do that without thinking about the cost because there's just only so much you can spend as a team. So that's going to be a factor. That's a big one. Like I think age is a factor in a lot of cases, although there are several that are like, oh, it's close enough to not make a huge difference in some of these comparisons. I thought it was interesting that a lot of these do just sort of pair guys that are in similar age brackets. So that may not come up as much, but it's just kind of a holistic, given what this guy does or may be able to do going forward or may not, depending on where you are in the player's career trajectory and the cost, like just who do you want for 5 years? And you can throw in, I mean, look, we're going to talk about LaMelo. So it's like, you can throw in how good of a leader will this guy be? And will that be the role he needs to play on whatever hypothetical, so it's pretty global. It's just kind of designed to let's assess like where these guys are and, the pluses and minuses going forward.
And the final thing I've given consideration to is you don't really know. And I think that's part of the challenge and the fun of this is that you're not necessarily saying we want, because some of these players aren't superstars. you're not saying we want this guy as our starting point of how we're
No,
building a
yeah,
team with a winner. So you almost have to envision, okay, well, he's not going to be the only guy, but we also don't know what type of team we're putting him onto.
mhm,
So that comes into part. If you think someone's more scalable than another, that's going to be a vote like in their favor.
for sure. Yeah, and there will just be guys that this is like my least favorite kind of player, where it's like he has to play this outsized role, and he's just not good enough to be that number one guy, but he sort of has to, you know what I mean? Like that player type is really tricky, and there are going to be some of those here.
Let's get to it. We begin with a banger from Cavs Grant, and I think we'll alternate, just sort of reading them off. I'll go first. Darius Garland or Tyrese Haliburton, who would you rather have for the next 5 years?
Man, we really do start with a tough one. I would say, had we done this a week ago, 2 weeks ago, I think Garland would have been the much easier pick. But Haliburton has finally had a couple of good, like, oh, there he is, you know, those kind of games lately. Um, I I'm gonna lean Haliburton. I hate to, you know, I'm not gonna pontificate too much before just saying so. I guess that's just really a vote in favor of he's closer to the guy he was pre-hamstring injury last year than the guy he's been this year, certainly, and for long stretches of last season, which is like a singular driver of excellent offense. Garland is awesome. We've never seen him in the kind of role that Haliburton has played, you know, where he's the be all end all. I don't know that Garland is incapable of doing that. I've just seen Haliburton do it. So but it is close, man. Like I wouldn't like, I don't know which way you're going. We haven't discussed this, but if you think it's Garland, I can't really fight you because Halliburton's lows, not to say Garland hasn't had some, but Halliburton's lows have been like really concerning, you know, starting this year for sure.
Yeah, I think I'm leaning Garland at this point, and maybe that's a lot of recency bias, and Tyrese Haliburton has picked up. But if we consider the injury history at this point, where Haliburton's dealt with hamstring and back issues that have severely limited him, and we're at a point where also the framing is, man, Tyrese Haliburton over his last 6 quarters of basketball is doing this. Oh, so now we're just breaking it down by half games.
Right.
It concerns me. And Garland, yes, he's had his own injury histories, but it's always just got smacked in the face, couldn't eat. It's nothing that feels chronic. You could get into the contracts too of like, well, they're going to run for a similar time, and Garland is not going to be on a super max. So that I think is a vote in his favor as well. I'm starting to wonder if Garland is the more, I don't even, it's not necessarily an insult, but doesn't he feel more plug and play on offense at this point? Like we've seen Haliburton, and maybe this is a design of the Pacers, but there've been struggles about how it took a while for them to figure out how to use him when they're bringing in this other ball handler, where it's Garland. Yes, him and Donovan Mitchell went through odd stretches and less than ideal stretches, but by and large, like he's also emerged as someone who, we want him to run the offense, even though we have Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley. And so the fact he could play off of them, but you've also have that level of belief and conviction in what he's doing, scoring from basically every level this season, it's him for me.
Yeah, I guess like, would you say that the best version of Haliburton is better than what we've seen as the best version of Garland?
Yes, it would probably come down to and both of these players are young enough to where maybe neither has reached their peak, but
True.
it comes down to what's the feasibility of them sustaining the peaks that we know of.
Yeah, I look again, like I said, I can't fault you. I think as I'm just talking it out, that's it for me, which is to say, like I've seen Haliburton be like an MVP contender on the level that Garland just hasn't hit. And that the problem with that is like, what if that was just a fluke and he can't get back to that? And is Garland the higher floor? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, he has to be, because I do think the health stuff, and someone in our comments had brought up about like, maybe is that why the Kings ultimately dealt him, is because one, we're going back to scalability. The partnership with De'Aaron Fox wasn't working out. I still think they could have figured something out.
I do too.
But if they were actually concerned about his body holding up, so I do think that Garland absolutely has the higher floor, which factors into this.
That's fair. I'll send you this one, Dan. This is from Nicole Chekolev out of our Discord. We got Herb Jones and Keegan Murray. Who are you taking?
I think I lean Herb Jones at this point. Keegan Murray's become a really, really good defender, and he has the higher ceiling as an offensive player, but he has struggled part of that this year with his shot, and part of that might just be, okay, now you've added another cook in the kitchen with DeMar DeRozan, and there's been inconsistent well, not inconsistent, but he missed some time. But I look at Herb Jones, and I don't think, like, maybe Keegan Murray makes some all defense teams. We know Herb Jones is going to have how many all defense teams by the time he hangs up. And I think he's improved enough offensively. Is no, he's not quite pass, dribble, and shoot, but like he can do a little bit of all of those things now. And I would be interested to see, honestly, with both of these guys, what could they maybe do in a half court with better spacing around them?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's Herb Jones for me, because I think there's still that clear separator on defense between the two. And I haven't seen a version of Keegan Murray, and by design, of course, with the way the Kings are set up. I don't know that I trust Keegan Murray's offense enough to say, like, I want him over Herb Jones for the next half decade.
Yeah, I think I lean Herb to one, my favorite, the premium skill argument. Like, we know Herb Jones is just elite at a thing. He's one of the best defensive players in the league, super versatile. And shows up in the stats with the steal rate and all that stuff. But you watch him, and that guy's one of the best defensive players in the league. I think if you go Murray, one, you're banking on, like, say, his rookie year shooting being more real than his 28% from three this year. And you're also probably persuaded that a lot of his perceived underperformance, again, his defense has improved and he is very good there now. He's not Herb Jones. A lot of his underperformance owes to, like, just the role that he's in on this Kings team, where it's like, he just isn't going to get a lot of chances, right? To, one, get shots up, but two, just explore, like, oh, maybe he can do more of X, Y, and Z. Which we've seen signs of, but like, if you're on team Keegan, it's a lot of it has to be, there's more here that in another situation he could tap into. And that might be right. But I think I feel safer going with, I know Herb Jones is going to be able to guard whoever the other team's best player is and be passable and maybe get a little better as an offensive player. Like, he shot over 40% from three last year. Not crazy volume, but like, you get a little of that, you get a little pick and roll ball handling. Like, that's enough, I think, for the defense to take it.
And I don't know how much this should factor in, but like, Herb Jones has 2 more years after this one left on his deal where it's very team friendly. Yes. Keegan Murray has 1 year of cost control, and I'm assuming he's going to get a deal that well outstrips Herb Jones. For now, sure. How much does Herb Jones get in his next deal wasn't a huge factor for me, but this was a good one. Mm-hmm. Next up, we have Chet Holmgren or Evan Mobley. This also came from Cavs and Nada. Made 2 at the top because I found these to be so fascinating. Grant, who are you taking for the next 5 years?
These are just brutal. This is kind of like, there's a little bit of a Haliburton Garland parallel here with Mobley. Again, you don't talk about floors with guys like this necessarily, but the injury stuff with Holmgren. Now, granted, these are 2 like fairly, certainly this latest one is a fluke, catastrophic, ugly fall. Not like he's got calf injuries that won't go away or hamstrings or whatever. It still concerns me because now he's missed a full season, was awesome last year, and is going to miss, several more weeks this year. I think I still probably go, oh God, I don't even know. I don't know what to do here.
You have to pick.
I'm going to go Chet. I'm going to go Chet because I think he got to a higher offensive level faster than Mobley did. And I think defensively, Mobley's probably better now, but I think Chet is close enough to where I think the offensive upside for Holmgren is probably higher. Quietly, Mobley's numbers are kind of back down to the level that he was at last year, and the whole leap angle is less persuasive than it was a few weeks ago. This is the closest so far, though. I'm going Chet, but I love Evan Mobley, and Mobley's the safer pick.
And he's also who I'm choosing. I'm going with Mobley. I don't know what Chet's ceiling is on offense anymore. And I think what I like about Mobley is if you put Mobley in, I know he doesn't have the same quote unquote range, like the same jumper, but if you put Mobley in Oklahoma City spacing, he ends up being better overall, I think, than Chet. I find what he does defensively, scale, like Chet is the better rim protector overall, but I think with Mobley, even though he plays with Allen, I don't feel the need, if you need to go out and give another big man $30 million a year, where you did that because you felt like you were too frail on the front line against opponents. But also, I think this might just be the deciding factor. Do I think that Mobley, I really do think Mobley's going to wind up, when we look back, being the better passer, someone getting downhill, like making those types of decisions, someone who could be more of an offensive hub. But the health thing, like, I know you said that it's kind of that freak fall, but it's also his body type. Like, he's just long and spindly. that these injuries could crop up a little bit more. And he also, look, Evan Mobley didn't miss his entire rookie season with a foot injury. And that's I don't care who you are, Joel Embiid, Chet Holmgren, I don't care if you're a guard. That's going to concern me. So Mobley, but I'm with you that this is close. Holmgren does have, okay, like Mobley's going to be really expensive next year. And so Holmgren, you're going to have another year of cost control there that you don't get with Mobley. So I think that could be a differentiator for some, but just the health stuff coupled with how good I really do believe Evan Mobley is on offense. And to me, it's still more of an eye test versus numbers thing with him a lot of the times on offense. And I see it.
I think I'll concede that a lot of picking Chet for me is there's more of a mystery box element because he's played fewer than 100 games so far. Whereas Mobley's growth or lack of it, I guess, it's just been steady. And like somehow his steady improvement is like disappointing because he's not taking the supers. Oh, he's not Kevin Garnett like today, right now.
Like Jalen Brown-esque, where he's incrementally improved year over year. Yeah.
Right. And then like, who knows if we'd seen, 2 full seasons or like, I guess, 2+ full seasons from Chet, he might be subject to some of the same like criticism where it's, oh, he's not getting so much better. I think fewer games, ironically, makes me more excited because like, oh, we don't really know yet. Whereas with Mobley, we feel like we have a sense of what that trajectory is. But yeah, it's tough. I hate this, but I'm going Chet.
This is fun. I knew Cavs Anata was going to have multiple ones in here, but the fact that they came in up top, I probably didn't do a good job of randomizing them too much, but my head already hurts and we're only 3 players in.
All right. Oh, okay. This is from, our dear friend of the podcast, Brian Spork. Tyrese Maxey, Dan, or Jared McCain?
I hope this is a joke just because like it has to be Tyrese Maxey. Is it, you could frame it strictly as a contract. So Jared McCain, he's in his rookie season. So you have these 4 cost controlled years versus Maxey is now on a max deal. Does that change it for you at all? Because the answer is Maxey. If you throw the contracts out the window, the answer is Maxey, and it's just not even close.
Yeah, and it's like what that made me think of right away was, what are the chances McCain is someone that when his time comes is a pretty much a no-brainer max? Like, I don't know what a great outcome that would be. But I don't know that that's a given. Whereas Maxey, he had to wait obviously, but it was like he was getting that money and nobody was like, oh, that seems like too much, Maxey is already where you hope McCain could get,
Yeah, I was going to say, I haven't seen from what McCain is awesome, but do you like the argument against Maxey would be you don't think that he can run a team on his own. I haven't seen anything from McCain, at least as a playmaker, that would make me think he's going to be better equipped to do that at any point in the next half decade over Tyrese.
Yeah, I mean, like, Maxey averaged 25 a game last year. It was just like a huge driver of a very good team offensively when everybody was right. So, I mean, like, if anything, like Maxey might have another level. And then it's just like, well, now how many jumps does McCain have to make over the next 5 years to get there? It's a lot. So I think it's Maxey, but I enjoy the exuberance of the Philly fandom having McCain in the conversation.
If you're such a cap obsessive where it's give me the guy on the rookie scale, that's like,
yeah. Well, I mean, in fairness, he is playing as a good starter now, like, in the first year of his rookie deal. So I don't know how confident we are that's going to sustain, but like, was that true of Maxey? I mean, Maxey averaged 8 a game, started 8 times as a rookie, different situation, but like, I don't know, McCain might be ahead if we just look at the age comps.
Well, we had a bunch of McCains. I'm assuming there's more on the way here. So Grant, Jared McCain or Bilal Coulibaly? This is from Braden. Who are you taking in the next 5 years?
I don't know that this should be easier, but I think our Coulibaly allegiance is well understood. I go Bilal. He doesn't have like I feel like I understand roughly what kind of player McCain is going to be, or something close to it. Coulibaly, I think, is better now and has so many more pathways to be a star in, like, we've talked about this. Like, maybe he's just a stopper. Oh, and maybe he's a first option pick and roll ball handler. Like his drives have doubled per game. His pick and roll ball handling efficiency is way up. Like Coulibaly has the potential to be the best, one of the most valuable player types in the league. And I think McCain's size and athleticism is like, he's just not going to get there ceiling wise. So it's pretty easy Coulibaly for me.
Yeah, it's a pretty easy, cool volley for me as well. I like the aspect of, even if you think I mean, he does have more ball skills, the growth that Bilal's made in just not even 2 seasons, but also the idea that you could just put him on the other team's best player defensively, almost irrespective of, almost regardless of position. Excuse me. I know some people don't like it when I trip over words. It's an easy Bilal for me.
Yeah.
Rough stretch for Jared McCain. Let's see if he does any better here.
Don't think so. Steph Castle versus Jared McCain. You got to choose first here.
I'm going to go with Steph Castle. McCain definitely might have the higher offensive ceiling, but I've been impressed with the shooting for Castle is just going to be a swing skill. I know that the Spurs are putting him in unique opportunities with the way how far he's spacing behind the arc. If he ever just becomes a league average 3-point shooter, big deal. The defense is hugely different. You can already just throw him on the other team's best perimeter player within size reason. And I think the Spurs still don't have all this ideal spacing, and I know he's kind of just secondary there. I feel like he's going to be the better passer. And so if we broke it down to Jared McCain's going to be the better scorer, Steph Castle's going to be the better defender, not that these are the only three areas, but like one of the bigger separators would be, well, who's going to be like the better driver of table setting for others? I guess McCain still looks like he'll create better advantages, but some of the passes that Steph Castle has thrown, again, in tight spaces, I'm going to go with him.
Yeah, I'm in the bag for Castle already, and he's under 40% from the field. Like, I don't care. The size and the athleticism and the feel and just the burst. Like he's got so many qualities that you just like McCain just won't have, no matter what. And the shoot, I was having a conversation about this yesterday. Like, when are we gonna stop like overvaluing the player type where you say, God, if he could only learn how to shoot? Like, I'm talking about the Thompsons and Castle and just go on. I mean, Herb Jones was subject to this for a while too. Like, it doesn't happen a lot where it's just like, oh, this like A+ premium athlete that had everything but a shot got a shot and then became great. I don't care. Like, I'm still going Castle. I think he might be special, and it's way too early, and that's a dumb thing to say, but I'm pretty sold on him.
Another Steph Castle one.
Yeah.
Oh, this one's you though.
Okay. Well, you got to read it to me. But you think?
Oh yeah, sorry. Steph Castle or Jeremy Sochan. This comes from official Steely Dan. Who are you taking for the next 5 years, Grant?
It's Castle again. I mean, Sochan. I still don't know what he is. I think he's good at a lot of things. He's got the shooting issue too. He's bigger. He might be more defensively versatile. I say might because I think Castle has the potential to guard up as well as down in ways that, put him on a similar level. Castle has like superstar upside. Sochan just does not.
Yeah, I think this is a pretty easy one. And also, I think the Spurs, once Sochan's healthy, probably need to have some uncomfortable conversations because I don't know defensively, sure, but offensively, I don't know how you make him and Wemby work. And even with Steph Castle right now, the fact that you can or not that you can and like defenses are guarding him, but you can envision a scenario where, okay, he's standing 30 feet away from the basket and defenses are semi-concerned about what happens next.
Yeah.
You can't do that with Jeremy Sochan.
No. Yeah. All right, Dan, from Real Syrup. Scottie Barnes or Jalen Williams?
Oh, man. This one's tough.
No, it's not.
I'm going Scottie Barnes. I think Jalen Williams is fantastic, but if you have to, I don't know, because Scottie Barnes, if you were to plug him into a bigger team dynamic, I might wonder how he fares. But I also think you could probably use him in more ways, whereas, okay, Toronto's set up to use him in a specific way, but you can get him going as a screener if you need to. I do trust that the pull-up and the jumpers come along enough to where, okay, 5 years from now, let's see where it's at. I would probably still trust him to run an offense over Jalen Williams at this point. It's close. The size positionally on defense, I think that helps out, but we know that Jalen Williams takes jump balls now too. So how much does that actually matter? Slight margin here. This is a good one from Real Syrup 2219. I'm going to go Scottie Barnes.
Yeah, no surprise. I'm going Williams. I just think I don't have any questions about can Jalen Williams do X. You might say, like, can he run a good offense alone? I just think his shooting ability makes that more plausible. Like, I guess talking like number one option type stuff. Like, I think he's better suited to be a number one option than Barnes is because of the shooting. Barnes might be more defensively versatile, might be a better passer. I don't know. Williams just doesn't have a weakness. And Barnes, the shooting is going to be an issue. Unless he just plays center all the time, or you have to tailor some things to Barnes, I think, where Williams, you don't at all really and that's kind of been the knock on him, I guess, is that Williams fits everywhere, but doing the Paolo comparison, for example, which we might do at some point. I didn't scrutinize the list, but
I actually don't think we have that one. Sorry, Grant. You can't rehash.
I'm really scared of having to decide that one now. I think Williams is just like a flaw-free player that actually can be a number one option. He's grown so much year over year that's plausible to me. And I don't know that that's true of Barnes. And I do know it's true of Barnes that you got to figure out is what to do with the guy that doesn't shoot it great, consistently. That's kind of the differentiator for me.
You might have swayed me. I don't know. That was a good one.
It's close. I'll concede that. Oh, you have to give me this one? God damn.
Yeah, you have to give me this one.
Okay, good. Via Alejandro Ago, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Dan, or Jayson Tatum?
I'm going to go. I will say that Jayson Tatum has a stronger case here than many might be willing to give him. And if you kind of break down what the two of them are doing just specifically this season, the numbers really aren't terribly different. Shai's at 29.5 points per game, 6.4 assists. Tatum's at 5.8 assists and 28.4 points per game. He is the better, more willing 3-point shooter. They're averaging the same number of free throw attempts per game. Jayson Tatum's doing it in more minutes. Shai, I do think, is going to be craftier on the ball. They've probably become close defensively. Shai was getting all defense buzz last year. I don't know what to do here. It's so interesting because Shai, as of right now, is a player that's more likely to win MVP in any given season.
Right.
But if you rip Shai out of the construct of Oklahoma City and put him on a team where there are other A+ guys, I'd be curious to see what he looks like. Oh, I don't know. I'm going Shai. I do think he's probably more of a primary playmaker overall. And I think that if you even put him in a situation where I know you said that you think Jalen Williams can be another number one option. Right now, Oklahoma City just doesn't have anyone who creates advantages even close to it. Jalen Williams isn't, he can get two to the ball, but it's not in a way of a tried and true number two just yet. And the fact that Shai still is doing what he does, I'm going to go with him. I think he has ways. The biggest difference for me, though, is I think he has more ways to score than Jayson Tatum. I think Jayson Tatum's come a long way as a scorer, but he is so reliant on kind of the escapism from 3-point range.
Yeah,
that I'm going to go with SGA.
Yeah, it's brutal. And they're such different offensive players, but equally, and it is hard to get past the idea that Shai is going to be and has been closer to winning MVP than Tatum, and shouldn't, and they're the same age. They're both 17. No, they're both 26. So shouldn't that decide it? Right. And I think, but then measured against that, and this is also unfair. I'm more guilty of this than you. We've seen Tatum do it and win a championship. We've seen that happen. Now, Jaylen Brown was finals MVP, so you might want to throw that in there. I don't but SGA has not done it yet. I don't know that it's fair to hold it against him because the Celtics team that's around Tatum has been better over the last couple of years. I'm just vamping because I can't decide. I think I gotta go Tatum, while conceding that again this year Shai will probably be ahead of him in MVP voting.
I don't know that he will be. If you're not respecting what the Celtics are doing, I think Jayson Tatum's passing over the past. He's the wing-sized player that we're all supposed to covet. I think I just feel like there's more variance in his offensive performance, regular season, postseason, than there will be for SGA, and so I'm going that. But this is the toughest one yet.
Couple other things too. Durability might be a factor. Now the Thunder have shut Shai down a couple times. So how hurt was he? But Tatum is a rock, plays 70 plus games, just clockwork, basically, certainly over the last few years. And I think it is a fair criticism that Tatum is less offensively diverse. You can't match him up against anyone like you can with Shai. And you're well, Shai's going to get into the lane and make something happen. Tatum will feint and move around and try to get a three off. But then are we just making the criticism of like, oh, he's too good. He could get to that three too easily. And it's like a bailout. Like I'm hesitant to make it a criticism of someone that can get a three off at any time, and
right. But I still think, does the best version of Tatum uplift a squad with less overall talent around him than the best version of Shai would? And then I do think the answer is no. But then what you could say is, will Shai be as scalable if you put him on the Celtics? Would he be as good? And I honestly, like, the answer is yes. I mean, he can do some more things away from the ball. He's not a terrible shooter. We've seen him go through spurts. And look, the problem with him, and again, this is the value of Tatum, but like, it's not like Shai gets all these spot up opportunities.
Right,
like
right,
self-generated threes are tough, and it feels like that's why he might back off of those. That's what Tatum's doing as well. It feels like there should be no wrong answer, but someone's gonna. I think it's good that we disagree, but it's close.
It is super close. Yeah, really, really good comp.
Next up, Mr. Hughes, who are you taking for the next 5 years? LaMelo Ball or De'Aaron Fox? We had two people submit this exact same one, and I will preface it with, this does mean I think that a run of LaMelo Ball ors are coming.
Yeah, so obviously Fox has a much longer track record. He's had his injury issues too, but like, we're not talking about a guy that we basically didn't see for 2 years. And LaMelo's numbers this season are bonkers, like, up 30 a game, tons of assists. He's also shooting a lot, and like just, getting numbers. So I think, the arrow feels like it's pointing up on Ball, but with that comes the pushback of like, his defense is just atrocious. Like, he's fouling out all the time. He's never, you watch the games, like, forget the numbers. He's never in a defensive stance. Like, he's just is standing up, reaching, like, it's really damaging defensively. And if you are your team's best player, which he obviously, well, I mean, Brandon Miller is very good, but Ball just sort of is the key figure on that team. I think it's a real problem if you're just not giving a shit defensively. And then there is all the criticism about how mature is he? How serious is he? Like, all that stuff. I think Fox has been inconsistent. We've seen him be really great defensively in the past and then not so much. I never really feel like Fox just doesn't compete, though. And I think you can make that criticism of Ball. So give me the longer track record. How many? 1, 2, 3, 4 years, 4 of the last 5 years, over 25 a game. Fox has been to the playoffs, has had some success. Like, I think
more
it's
durable.
Fox. More durable. I think it's Fox. But if you believe Ball has a step to go in the next 5 years and is willing to do it, like, defensively and just from a professionalism standpoint, that second part's unfair, but like, that is a criticism that's out there. Then I could see going with Ball. I think Fox is just way safer.
He's way safer, but I also just think he's better. I think that you might be underselling if LaMelo puts together an entire season of doing what he's doing now without getting hurt, his case becomes stronger. But the defense, like, is a huge differentiator, plus the durability. And I think, look, Fox has shown, look at the way he scored, like, in tight spaces with Sacramento. And even now, like, the way he's shooting with both DeMar and Sabonis on the court, I think he was still shooting like 60% from two during those. This dude just finds ways to score. This step back is more of a weapon. I know some people don't like it than is credited. I think it's him. That was a good one, though, from Braden. It was GN_the Spicer was the second one that we got it from. Hit me with this one, Mr. Hughes.
Okay. You got LaMelo. This is from via Oz 10. LaMelo again, or Paolo Banchero?
It's Paolo, right? I mean, the defense here, again, is a big differentiator. Paolo's better on defense. LaMelo Ball is the better passer. He's the better outside scorer. But, like, even with LaMelo kind of getting to the line more, doing a little bit more on drives, the way that Paolo is able to score from every level, now the efficiency is still going to be a big deal, where we're finally, before he's getting injured, this is someone who he's going to hover around, or a lot, like, slightly higher than league average for shooting percentage. But it was like what he does on offense, like, the advantages that he creates are just taking the tough shots, drawing in defenders. If you gave him even a modicum of good spacing, I think we're probably talking about a much more efficient Paolo than we've even seen. This one's pretty easy for me. I'm going Paolo here.
I think it's Paolo, and like, yeah, we're going off the leap he made this year as a 5-game sample. But I do think within that
last year, though, too.
Right. So that's what I mean. It's like, and he might have a potential superpower as a foul drawer, which is just like, okay, he's going to be a hyper efficient scorer if he shoots 32% from three, because he was getting to the foul line 12 times a game, and just like
Is that
watching
good?
him, yeah, right, it's pretty good. Watching him play, like his physical advantages are just like undeniable. He's so like adept with the ball and knows how to use his size and strength at an age where guys like are still usually figuring that out. I just think he's going to be he's a number one option on a good, potentially a good offense if you put spacing around him, which Orlando still hasn't done. LaMelo is like, what's the matchup problem that LaMelo creates, right? Where it's like with Paolo, it's like, who do you put on this guy? And with LaMelo, it's like, I don't know, just put like your wing on him, and that's about as good as you can do. And he'll either make a bunch of threes or not, and get into the. It's just like Paolo is such a bigger problem, I feel like.
We have another Paolo Banchero one. Ooh, Grant from Alexander, Paolo Banchero or Cade Cunningham?
So I think I go Paolo again, while acknowledging that Cade is just quietly becoming one of the most complete players in the league. It has gotten better defensively. Is obviously like can score, can be a facilitator. It just is really like, it's kind of the Jalen Williams thing plus like more playmaking, like natural playmaking chops and stuff, where it's like, what's the guy's weakness? I still think Paolo strikes me as a guy who's just going to be more overwhelming. And it's not fair, but from a team success standpoint, we've just seen Paolo be the lead on a good team, and we haven't seen Cade do it. That's because the team they've put around him has been just ill-fitting from the jump.
Hey, the Pistons have, I think, already won more games than they did by the trade deadline.
They have, and they did it by like adding Malik Beasley and Tobias Harris. It's like, how low is the bar to put it? Again, we keep saying this is close, but I just think Paolo has the capacity to be like, you can't do anything with him.
So what's interesting is I think that Cade is somehow still underrated, because the word you mentioned is complete. This is going to be someone who's one of the most complete players in the game, but he doesn't. The other word you used was overwhelming. If you scale ahead to the playoffs, like Cade, and I don't have a problem. Some people have a problem that he shows his explosion sometimes, but it's not consistent enough. Paolo's going to find ways to score in literally any setting. We've seen him play in some dog shit spacing units with Orlando. He's still going to find ways to score. It won't always be efficient, but the offense is probably going to be better off for it. Even if it's just making life easier on a player or two that's beneath him in the pecking order. I don't know if Cade will ever have that same gear as a scorer. He's certainly never going to be the same foul drawer. And just like, is he going to have the ability to put pressure on the basket the way that Paolo can? The completeness of Cade really comes close here, but I think it's Paolo for me too.
Yeah.
Next up, who we got?
Oh man. So this is from Brian Spork again. Paolo Banchero or Chet Holmgren?
I mean, look, I think it's Paolo. Chet is far more plug and play. He's better defensively, and I know that this is counterintuitive because Paolo's dealing with an oblique injury, but he is the more durable player to this point. Now, I think what is interesting, though, is that both of these guys, like Chet, you could put anywhere, and Paolo feels like more of a player that you need to uniquely build around. Yeah. But I also think that he's worth building around in that way. Now, if you believe, the spacing and the driving from Chet on offense plus the defense, which again, he's better than Paolo there. You can play Chet at center. Paolo, you could play at center too, but you would prefer not to. I'm always going to appreciate the player who I believe can shoulder a more complicated offensive workload. And despite the strides that Chet has made, the durability here, I'm going Paolo. Why? I feel terrible about all these answers.
I know, I do too. And I was just trying to think like, okay, so what transitive property? I took Chet over Mobley. And if I take Paolo over Chet, does that mean I also take Paolo over Mobley? How do I feel about that? I think you hit it right. It's the scalability question, which begets the real question is like, do you think Paolo is good enough to be the number one option like that he sort of has to be? Whereas you're right with Chet, it's like, okay, maybe he's just your stretch five that blocks shots, or maybe there's more individual offensive like capability ahead for Chet. I go Paolo too, and I think it's just because I do believe he's worth building around as like a central figure. And I don't know that I wouldn't feel that confident about like Chet is my best player. I build around him. Like you could do that, but then we'd probably get into like, do we need someone who's better than Chet on this team? Whereas if you have Paolo there, I think you feel pretty good projecting forward as like, he's our best guy and we're fitting stuff around him. We don't need someone better than him. That's kind of where it gets to me.
It's also why I just want Orlando to have another initiator aside from like the Franz Wagner, Anthony Black types right now, is to see what Paolo might look like in the play finishing aspect. But I do believe, and I'm not saying swap them on their teams. I'm just saying if you put Paolo Banchero on this iteration of the Thunder, are they as good or better than the Thunder with Chet Holmgren?
I mean, you lose something. You lose the length in the defense, but I guess if you have Hartenstein, you're feeling pretty good. And Chet doesn't make the Magic any better, that's for sure, because he just kind of.
I'm not even saying put him on the Magic because that's just like a disingenuous. I'm just saying, like, because Oklahoma City is the ultimate team where it's you want to concern yourself with scalability. Like they give you the spacing. They have two guys who can create advantages in SGA and Jalen Williams consistently. They have a bunch of surrounding versatile defensive talent, maybe on the smaller side. So if you doubt Paolo's ability to optimize that group or fit in and make them better than they are now with a Chet Holmgren, that might then answer your question of, well, perhaps it should be Chet, unless it's just the durability is the bigger concern.
Yeah, that's a factor too. That man, another tough one. I think it's Paolo. We got to take the number one option, I think.
Grant, Joel Embiid or Zion Williamson, and this comes from D Nitz.
5 years. 5 years we have Embiid or Zion. How much younger is Zion? Like a full 5 years younger, 4 years younger? I know.
Young. I remember being shocked at how often he was in the under 23 list for. So he's 24 and doesn't turn 25 until July.
This is the worst possible time to be doing this because they're both like basically in the worst case scenario state where Embiid just seems like he's broken down and Zion has a hamstring that is never going to get healthy because he's not in shape. It looks like. I guess.
Wait, you're going to blame the hamstring stuff because Zion's not in shape is what you believe? Is that what's floating around out there?
Blaming no, I think it's just really difficult for him to not put a lot of strain on his body because of how difficult it seems to be for him to get into like peak shape.
Yeah, and Embiid has no problem with that.
Right. That's the thing. It's like anything you could say about one applies to the other here. Do you just go Embiid because his high is higher than Zion's ever been, which like he's been an MVP. He's been a point per minute guy, even at like pretty clearly last year, not 100% physically. And then I think I go Embiid. I've seen Embiid be better than Zion's ever been. I don't have any confidence in either of them staying healthy going forward. Embiid being older is scary, but I also don't know what a good team built around Zion looks like because we've never seen it. And Embiid, I have proof of concept. So I'll go Embiid, but like, this is just, I mean, can I take the field or can I take neither?
Can we take Banchero here too?
Yeah, right. Let's keep going Paolo every time.
I'm going with Embiid as well. The age difference is big because you mentioned it, the peak of Embiid, but I also, let's assume that they're both going to be healthy now. Then you get into age questions and it's Zion's not even going to be 30 by the time this 5-year window is over. Joel Embiid's going to be in his mid 30s at that point. I think what's the bigger difference for me is that even with peak Zion, and you can fault the Pelicans for not doing it yet. We just mentioned players with Paolo is more specific to build around. Zion poses those same challenges. Like Embiid, not only have we seen his peak, but like we've seen him on a bunch of different iterations of really good Sixers teams. And so if he's healthy, you don't necessarily have to think as much about the talent around him as you do with Zion.
Yeah. It's scary though, because like I caught myself thinking, like, what if it's just sort of over for Embiid, right? Like what if the knees are never getting better? But then it's like, well, what if it's over for Zion?
Right. We'll have to save that for a longer Sixers discussion, but I actually do believe that people are being way too alarmist here with Embiid. And this, look, we just have evidence again that, okay, yes, it's weird. It sucks that he's out again, but like he takes a while to ramp up. That has been the MO with him all the time. So it's just look, unless you think Embiid is just done, which I guess is not implausible, the Sixers are going to be fine. It's just, I can't. we have too much evidence of this guy's going to be dominant after a ramp up. And even when he's not healthy enough in the playoffs, like look what he's still able to do in certain moments. Now, again, 5 years is a long time. He's going to be in his mid-30s. But
Yeah.
my overall Sixers thoughts, I'm actually concerned at how unconcerned I remain about where they're at.
I'm concerned about your lack of. I know. I mean, I think anytime everyone is burying a team, which is pretty much what's happening, it's probably smart to like say, all right, that's not as bad as it seems. But I would, we can have a longer Sixers discussion at some point. My concern would be like, one, you're right. He does ramp up. Like we've seen it how many different years. I would be concerned that the level that he is capable of ramping up to is just lower now and like harder to sustain because, you know, it's essentially like a degenerative condition. Like he's had so many, think his career started with injury. He's fought them throughout. Like I think at some point, like it's just impossible for him to reach a level where like your vision of the Sixers comes together. And I'm not saying that's definitely now, but like what he can ramp up to eventually becomes like not enough, I think, because of the health stuff.
But it has to look, if you have to think that his knee is just done, like that he's headed towards Kawhi Leonard availability moving forward. But otherwise, because even like Zion, how much of his game is still prided on like his not the physicality, but like the explosion of just
all of it.
Right. And so that's more of a tricky proposition than what we have with Embiid, who not only we've seen him at some of his inferior versions and he's still been good. Like during last year's playoffs, like he made a difference, even though he wasn't always at his best and playing on like 1.5 knees, whatever, 1.5 legs, whatever it ended up being. He also he's not as reliant on being like super quick and explosive. Like, yeah, he might slow you down to a detriment, but he's also, it's easier to build a supporting cast around him than it is for Zion.
That's the best argument, I think, is like a diminished Embiid is still like, can still do a lot of good things. A physically or athletically diminished Zion is what? Like an undersized forward that can't shoot. Like that's rough.
I do believe I'm going to hijack this stretch to propose them to you. Unless, again, I did randomize these. I believe we're headed for a bunch of Zion ones. Okay. So I'm throwing them to you. Let's see how many he can win. Grant, next 5 years, Zion Williamson or Alperen Sengun, also from Cavs.
I think it's Sengun. I recognize the defensive concerns that have been there, the shooting concerns that have been there. Sengun is just like, talk about not being reliant on athleticism. He's just like physically overpowers. Sengun just has so many more skills, I think. Like, even if I don't believe Sengun can necessarily hit the peak Zion levels that we saw for chunks of a couple seasons, he's just like, I believe in him as like a very good offensive hub on a good team. Don't know if he can be your best player on a championship winner, but I definitely know I don't believe Zion can be that anymore.
Yeah, and I look, the stuff he's done the past, well, I guess like season plus, since we're only a quarter of the way through this one defensively, because we've seen peak Zion on defense. Probably last year, that stretch was the best I've seen Zion defensively outside of Duke. That's great, but like now saying Sengun has done it consistently on two elite defensive teams, basically, I would love, I mean, I say it's about both of them. I would just love to see both these guys with better spacing, but Sengun is more likely to play in those instances. I think he's the answer here as well. Next up, next 5 years, Zion Williamson or Kristaps Porzingis. That comes from Nicole Chekolev.
Man,
do you find this one more interesting?
Because, well, it's what we're doing is like, I mean, obviously Porzingis comes with plenty of health questions himself, and he's not going to be your number one or maybe even like number two on a really good team. I don't know, man. I guess so. If I say Porzingis, I really do feel like we're then saying like Zion just kind of isn't. We're pretty much done thinking of him as like a difference maker.
Okay,
that makes me uncomfortable, right? Because Porzingis is a super valuable. Like, to call him a role player is wrong because he's better than that. But like on the Celtics, that is what he is. Like they ask him to do a handful of things, and he's good at those. I think I go Porzingis because I know that if he's on the floor, he's going to give me the shooting and the mismatch hunting post-ups and the shot blocking. And that's going to be true if he becomes significantly less athletic with more injuries. And with Zion, I don't know. I just don't know what I'm going to get. This feels like we've gone too far, but I'm still just the momentum. The anti-Zion momentum is tough right now.
I know it. I don't know when the last one is coming, but I do explicitly remember one of the combinations. That will be, if you pick the other player, that'll be okay. We're out. I think look, also Kristaps isn't young, says the
No.
35-year-old about the 29-year-old. So that it's like, okay, so taking him through age 34 with his injury history, but it's again the same thing with Embiid where a reduced version of Kristaps Porzingis can be more plug and play, but the Pelicans have never built a team where Zion, like if you put Zion just on the Celtics, I think he could set screens and like finish and like capitalize on mismatches. Now he doesn't have the shooting, not the same rim protector. Kristaps is definitely more plug and play overall. I'm going to go Zion. I'm going to bet on the youth here and give me the player that I think can be the driving force of a really good team rather than someone who, look, if we're talking about just this season, it's Kristaps. Like it's just, especially now that Zion's not playing and Kristaps came back earlier than someone expected. The longer term window, it doesn't give me confidence, but I'm going to roll the dice on Zion here. Zion Williamson or Jamal Murray? That one comes from Real Syrup 2219.
Man, again, we're dealing with Murray at like such a low stock point, and he's not like there's no evidence that Murray is a number one on a good team or even anything close to that,
or a bad team
or a bad, like, how do you, he's such a hard player to evaluate because of the Jokic of it all.
Well, I'll say this for anyone who if you put, and this isn't the conversation we're having, which team is better, LaMelo Ball on this current Charlotte Hornets team or Jamal Murray on this current Charlotte Hornets team?
Where did LaMelo Ball come into the conversation?
Well, I'm just saying because people are saying LaMelo Ball isn't a winner, and we've seen Jamal Murray win. But if you're looking for someone, you're talking about can he be like a higher end option on his own team? And to me, the answer is just no.
Yeah,
because if you put him on this version of the Hornets, I think they're way worse.
You know what? Maybe this is where I assume this isn't the guy you said where if we pick the other player, it's really
no. I'm not that down on Jamal Murray.
I mean, I'm leaning Zion because like I think we've seen the best of Murray, and I don't know how good. I mean, he's been what was he, the second best player on a title winner, except like his first best player was like an all timer. Maybe if you go Zion, you're just hoping you get a couple like apex years somehow. But I'm not confident in that. I'm going to do it. I'm going to take Murray. Even though like it's for me, I can't trust that Zion's going to be healthy and effective or anything close to what his best, fractions of those 2 years was.
I'm going to take Murray as well, actually, even though I just kind of jumped all over him, because you just need to view it. Okay, can he be your 2 or your 3? And then you flesh out your team from there. Where with Zion, does it impact you because you're still clinging to the hope that, well, he needs to be our number 1 guy? And then again, the reliance on the athleticism bit for me, like now, if Jamal Murray was like 31 years old, this might be a different conversation. But what is he, 27?
This is age 27 season right now for Murray.
So I'm going to go with Jamal Murray as well. It does bother me that he's been this uneven, like alongside a Nikola Jokic, though. Like that's definitely something to consider. Zion Williamson or Ben Simmons from D-Nits? Who are you taking for the next 5 years?
I assume this is the one.
This is the one. And I guess the lens through which we view this is, are you just want out of the Zion Williamson business because Ben Simmons is an expiring contract and then it's going to be super cheap moving forward?
Yeah, we haven't talked about contracts much in our Zion run here. I go Zion. I think like I just don't know what role Ben Simmons plays on a team that's. I mean, look, the Nets have been like shockingly good. I don't know how much Simmons has, if anything, to do with that.
Is going to get fired.
Yeah, do good. Good job. Get out of here. I think it's Zion. I just like Simmons. I think like I don't know what he does for you that you need on a team that's like really sincerely trying to win.
The passing and defense is still there, but it's just
even the passing though, Dan. Like the passing is like how much does being a good passer mean if you really just you have no intention of shooting the ball?
Right. No, I mean, here's the thing: is Zion Ben Simmons might be a better passer, but like Zion can pass in more than transition.
Right. Zion is this is understating it, a threat to try to score, whereas like Simmons is just zero interest.
That one was the easy one, and so ends the Zion Williamson stretch.
Can I give you this one? This is from my gold gaffer. Joel Embiid or Bronny James? Now
I'm going to take this seriously.
Okay.
I'm assuming that this is, you want out of that. Joel Embiid is going to be on that $192 million extension. He is older. His knees are cooked. And I'd rather clear up my books, have the 2nd round pick cap holding Bronny James, who will probably put butts in seats. And if we really want to view this, does it increase the chances that now we're assuming that the league, I guess, is a blank slate, that you get the last 2 years of LeBron James's career because you have Bronny. I'm still taking Embiid, but like if you had to build the case, like that's it. Is you don't want to pay Joel Embiid, and Bronny James will probably be a draw, not just for crowds, but for potentially his dad, who is still pretty good at basketball.
I think the question is, will Joel Embiid travel to road G League games? Is he going to say no to
Can
that?
the Sixers implement that so he doesn't play back-to-backs and only plays at home?
Oh yeah, there you go. I think it's probably Embiid. But my very first thought too, by the way, was, do I also get LeBron if it's Bronny? Even then, it's a question.
How much does punctuality mean to you? If Embiid's late to everything, we haven't heard that about Bronny.
That's true. It's a factor. Do we have any other Bronny ones? That'd be interesting.
No, that was it.
Okay.
That's why I included that one. This is mine for you. Grant, are you okay? Moses Moody or Lindy Waters the third? This is from, Are They Good NBA?
Did you know Lindy Waters has played more minutes per game and started more games than Moses Moody this year? I'm sure
I did, but you want to know why I did that? Why I know that? Because Lindy Waters the third is a superstar hiding in plain sight.
It's so true. Lindy Waters is now, you know what would be interesting is like, who am I talking about? I think he's a really well-rounded, versatile, kind of got some two-way skill, 8th, 7th guy on a good team. You might think I was talking about Lindy Waters. That's maybe true. The Warriors sure seem to think so. Although I bring up the starting thing because Waters has started a bunch since DeAnthony Melton went down for the season. And Steve Kerr does this where it's like he'll take a more like down rotation guy and put him into a role that's been vacated, so everybody else kind of stays in the same role. The problem is Moses Moody's role has always been too small. It's Moody. The Warriors invested in him. He's a better shooter. He's a better defender. He's a more versatile player.
Whoa! Hold on.
Fact.
You just saying he's a better shooter?
Yeah.
No. Don't look at the percentages. I don't care. First of all, numbers have no bearing. Fuck your facts, Grant. Look, I'm just saying, I'm not even saying I'm going to pick Lindy Waters. You look at the way he can fly around and the level of difficulty on threes that he could take.
Yes.
Do you think Moses Moody is capable? I'm not saying he's not. You said it so offhandedly that I needed to come in.
I was trying to trigger you. It's Moody. I mean, like Waters, though. Waters has to have Waters has to catch on at more than the minimum somewhere, right? After this year, don't you think? Like
coming off of like a 9-year deal that was a minimum or whatever it is. But
I hope he does. He deserves it. Moody's already got his basically mid-level extension. I think Moody. I don't know what Moody's ceiling is, but I think it's a little higher than Waters.
I'm picking Moody too. I don't think he's the better shooter. Like if I just wanted someone to come and fly around and get up threes, I'm taking Lindy Waters.
That's fair.
We got next, Mr. Hughes.
Okay. Ooh, this is exciting. Herb Jones, or the guy making twice as much as him, Jaden McDaniels.
Yeah, it's probably time to have a conversation about Jaden McDaniels being on one of the NBA's worst contracts, right?
Is it?
I was a fan of that extension, and I know what he's capable of doing defensively, but you got like Anthony Edwards has had to change his shot profile because Mike Conley's old. They traded for Julius Randle, and above all, the younger guy in Jaden McDaniels is incapable of hitting enough threes to get defenses to respect him. Yeah. And you can't pay someone all that money to be just worse than Herb Jones in a vacuum. Like who's the better player right now? Jaden McDaniels might be more durable, provided he's not going to injure himself by punching something. But it's Herb Jones, right?
It is. Yeah. I mean, like that 39% 3-point shooting year for McDaniels really is pulling a lot of weight here.
Give me like extra 2 years of cost control on Herb Jones, and then I'll figure out how much money you have to pay him after. It'll probably still be less than Jaden McDaniels is making at that point. Jaden McDaniels could be really good. We saw him. He hit threes in the playoffs last year. But like he is part of the Wolves' offensive problems. I know that a lot of the people are now relitigating a trade that's only a couple months old, and fairly so. But the Wolves look a lot different if Jaden McDaniels is actually a 3-and-D player, which he is not.
Yeah, I mean, like it really just can come down to cost. And it's just because like they're similar, but like one costs less than the other, and it's close enough to where that just kind of controls the conversation.
Here's the other thing. New Orleans felt confident enough in a healthy Herb Jones that they decided to house 0 established centers. And like
Right.
the Minnesota Timberwolves just keep stockpiling bigs. What does that say about Jaden McDaniels?
Right. He can't play center. Get him out of here.
Ooh, okay. Jalen Brunson or Tyrese Haliburton, Grant? This comes from Austin, who I know. This is why you join our Discord. I know who you are. Austin is a Pacers fan, so this feels like bait.
It is a little bit, and it really feels targeted at me because I've said some outlandish stuff about Haliburton that might have involved Steve Nash. I think it's Brunson.
Said, when we were doing the 2K exercise, there's a plug. Go check out that video. You said exact words verbatim. Back when Tyrese Haliburton used to be good. That is a direct quote.
It's Brunson. A contract. Let's talk about the contract. That's one. I mean, he's older than Haliburton, so that maybe you price in some decline sooner. Brunson is just like, I just don't have any questions about his toughness, his leadership, his ability to score against any kind of defense, his ability to shoulder a load from a scoring and like just ball control perspective that Haliburton hasn't been asked to. But I don't know that you can count on one hand the number of guys in the league that could take on what Brunson has had to take on and like performed well. So I think it's Brunson. You could argue Haliburton has the higher ceiling over the next 5 years, but I just Brunson seems so safe to me that I got to go with him.
I'm going to go with Brunson as well, pretty much for all that you said. And look, the contract has to be a big factor here. I do wonder how much recency bias is being caked in, because that contributes to why Brunson looks like a contractual steal. And not that I think Haliburton's an albatross, but if Haliburton just stays the player he was for the first quarter of last season or whatever, we're probably not even having this discussion.
No, we're not. We're not, because Haliburton would be viewed as just like this ascending superstar, be all end all off. Like,
because even if Brunson was still coming off the top 5 finish in MVP, the age difference would have to matter. What is it? What is he? 28, 29? So he's getting up there. My God. But you have to price that into the next 5 years. As of right now, the answer should be Jalen Brunson. But if Haliburton, if we weren't so concerned about the health and just the uneven performance over the past close to a year, I think that opens the door for this to be a pretty easy Brunson pick.
Yeah, I think so. All right, Dan, via Hayden and Sons, Scottie Barnes or Alperen Sengun? That's a good one.
Yeah, that is a good one. Fuck. I'm going to lean Scottie here. I don't like it. I don't know. Sengun is. I'm wondering, what does Sengun look like if the Rockets don't have the best assembly of perimeter defenders in the league, like kind of in front of him?
Yeah, it's like there's scalability questions with both, right? Or plug and play, or like how portable are either of these guys? And we've only ever seen each of them play for one team, so it's not like we've got a lot of different versions. I guess you could say Barnes, he's so early in his career, but he's been on a team with Fred VanVleet and Siakam and OG, and like that.
Sengun's been on a team with Fred VanVleet.
That's true. Let's see. Maybe that's the answer. Who's been better with Fred VanVleet? That's our control in the subject. You're going Scottie, huh?
I'm leaning Scottie. I feel like I'm underrating what Sengun can do on offense, because the Rockets still just don't have great spacing around him. And he's just like, he's able, I hate to bring up the Jokic comps because I think that they're way off, but like he can still just, it's not going to be as flashy, but like he wants to lower his shoulder and kind of like back you down from the 3-point line and score. Like he'll figure out a way to do it.
Well, it's kind of like, is the Jokic comp is wrong, and then the Sabonis comp is also kind of wrong because Sengun is such a more versatile interior scorer. Like, talk about lowering your shoulder. Sabonis can do that, and Sabonis has got the handoff game and is really willing passer. I think most of the very good things you'd say about Sabonis are true of Sengun, like plus just more craft maybe. And now,
here's what's interesting. Sengun is going to be on a below max deal moving forward versus Scottie, who's going to be on the max. I'm wondering if I should just cop out and say that that's going to shift it for me. I'm going to bet. I think Scottie has what could be a comparable ceiling on offense, because I trust that he'll be more of a spot up jumper threat than Sengun from beyond the arc moving forward. And then if you put him in certain spacing environments, I think the playmaking is there. Sengun will be the better offensive player, but I think that Scottie in a vacuum is going to wind up offsetting a lot more of that on the defensive end over the next 5 years.
Yeah, I think that's right. I don't love either of them as like my best player. I think that's but
You know what's interesting is but it gets down to specifics is I might feel better about Sengun as my best player because of what that can do for my offense, but I trust Scottie in more situations.
I think that, yeah, I guess oh man. I'm going to go Sengun. I think and it's super close. I'm comfortable with him as a hub. I'm comfortable with him as an offensive hub you can surround with shooting and defense. Barnes, I think to me feels like just a more, the defense is such a factor and the like length and the versatility. But I think I can understand what a very good team built around Sengun looks like because we're looking at it. And with a ton of upside if a bunch more of those Rockets guys could shoot it. Whereas with Barnes, I don't really know what it looks like with him as a hub, and that makes me uncomfortable. And then the cost maybe breaks the tie.
Next up, Grant, for the next 5 years, would you prefer to have De'Aaron Fox or Tyrese Maxey? This one comes from Oz10.
So the next 5 years are probably going to include a really big non-fun max for Fox. So I think you have to factor that in. Maxey is younger. Maxey is not as good of a defender. Maxey's a better shooter. Ah, man.
Fox is a better playmaker, right? Like he can set up people in more ways.
For sure. I think I go Fox. It's very close for the reasons I mentioned, and I've already said a lot of good things about Fox on what do we compare it? LaMelo, maybe. Yeah, it's the Maxey's youth and potential upside because Fox kind of is what he is, right? At this point, like he's in his late 20s now. Was he 27? I think. But I think that level is one that maybe Maxey reaches, maybe he doesn't from like an all around contributor perspective. Fox is safe, I think. And it's not like Maxey's cheap at the moment. So I'll go Fox.
I'll go Fox as well. I just think De'Aaron Fox is really good. And I think the fact that, remember when they first traded for Sabonis, and I think we were easier, or at least I was, relative to consensus where most people hated it. I was more open to the idea, but I still him and Sabonis, they're more of an intuitive fit than I thought. But like, this is how good De'Aaron Fox is. And I don't know if the Kings have assembled the ideal team around him, if that makes any sense. So yeah. I wouldn't say it's easy. Just, you mentioned the contract stuff. And I also think Tyrese Maxey is really good. And just as a kind of more of the plug and play shooter, where it's what you get the value out of Maxey is you can't shift De'Aaron Fox into a role that's going to be lower total usage. Like he's going to want to have the ball in his hands for stretches, but I do think that De'Aaron Fox has moved off the bell well enough during the Sabonis years that he's still going to be the pick for me.
Yeah, I think I agree. All right, here we go. Oh boy. First of all, I didn't via some guy named Grant. He was Dan, you got to choose between Jokic and Wemby.
Is this an interesting discussion to have just because Jokic is going to turn 30, Wemby's so young, and it's just, what does age 33, 34 Nikola Jokic look like versus the trajectory that Wemby's on?
Yeah, you're talking about the out years because right now Jokic is better.
Next season, the answer's still going to be Jokic, right?
I think so. So. I mean, next year gets, we might, who knows? This would be fascinating to revisit in a year. I think it's more likely than not that Jokic, at least this year, next year, maybe even the third year. Like, because what does decline look like for Jokic? You know,
and also 31 is not. Who do you watch that precipitously just drops off at the age of 31 if they're not dealing with health issues?
Right. So here's the thing: if you think Wemby is this, you know, beyond generational, like he's the guy we'll talk about in 50 years as like, remember how he showed up and everything was different. Like, if you think that, and you think that's happening before he's 25, then I guess you pick Wemby, but you just like, this is kind of like Jokic or the field because you know what I mean? And I think you just take Jokic. I don't think anyone in the league is going to be better than Jokic this year, next year, or the year after. And so you're banking on those last couple years in the 5-year window of Wemby catching or surpassing him, which means winning MVPs, which is not beyond the realm of possibility. I guess I don't see it. Like, why are we working this hard to justify the best player of the
well, because it is taking him through, because look, Victor Wembanyama might just win defensive player of the year in year 2. And he is, what did you call him? A 7'5" shooting guard.
Yeah. That's
This
my
is
take at the moment.
I'm going with Jokic. There's going to be more of an interesting discussion to have about Jokic in the sense of this is probably one of the 10 greatest basketball players of all time. And I don't think people are prepared to admit it just yet. And I think what may stop him is that there's still the element. And I want to make clear, I think winning is super important. But like when it gets boiled down to rings, the Nuggets have not consistently put him in the best position. There's been the year that I picked them because I'm a genius. And then last year is when they put themselves in a position to where they you could argue should have been one of the 2 or 3 most likely title winners. These other teams, and part of that is being the best player, but if and when the Nuggets don't win a bunch of rings with Jokic, it's 100% going to be on the Nuggets. It's not going to be on him.
He's never played with an all-star. Like, what are we doing? Like that's insane. We don't need to relitigate the whole Jokic.
Has he ever played with a guard as good as Chris Paul?
Right.
I'm just kidding. The answer is Jokic, but I do think I included it. Well, you included it. And thank you, Mr. Grant Hughes, for this submission. I included it because I just thought it was interesting because Jokic is so much older than him.
Yeah. Well, if it's a 10-year window, then it's a different conversation because Jokic probably won't be great when he's 40, but who knows?
He might. Well, he might. Here's the risk with Jokic. Are we sure that he just won't abscond back to Serbia and decide to raise horses rather than play basketball? I don't think he dislikes basketball. I think people want players to emote the way that people feel comfortable with. But if it was a 10-year window, like Nikola Jokic is going to be the guy that retires. Is like 33.
We never hear from him again.
Yeah. Who? Okay, this one, a Wemby one. That's probably a little bit tougher, I would think. Or no, not Anthony Edwards or Victor Wembanyama. Is it tougher next 5 years? From Hayden and Sons.
Yeah, it's tougher. I think it's definitely tougher. I don't know what to do here. I guess 5 years. So it's not like how old is Edwards? Was he like 22, 23?
I think he's 23, right?
I have to look
Wemby's like 14.
I know. That's the thing. Well, it's just like you're definitely getting Edwards over the next 5. This is age 23 season. You're getting like you're getting his absolute prime years. I don't know that that's true maybe that is true about Wembanyama. We don't know but that's like doom and gloom, like injury potential. Like,
and by the way, which he has not had yet for everyone that's had all this concern.
Man. So here's what we know about Edwards. I think, well, we don't know. He seems like he can be the number 1 option on a good offense. Haven't necessarily seen it with the Wolves, but that's not his fault. We've seen him adapt his game. Like all the 3-point volume is insane this year, and he's doing it at 43%, like taking tough ones. 5 years. Here's what we know about Wemby. He's maybe the best defensive player on the planet today, right now, and can stretch the floor at decent efficiency at a size. Do we have to take Wemby just because are we building in the growth? How much better does he have to get? Right now, I think Edwards is a better player. But it's very close, and there's probably a lot of metrics that would say that's dead wrong because of Wemby's defensive contributions. I don't know. We got to talk this out. Are you leaning one way or the other? I can't decide.
Oh, I'm not going to decide. No, I'm just so here's what's interesting. So I think what you could say about Edwards, or what I think people would gravitate towards, is one of the Wolves' biggest issues right now is they need a floor organizer, and that'll be used against Edwards, but like Wemby can't do that either. So if you want him in more of a play finisher role, that should maybe then be something that's knocked against him. And I actually think that Edwards, if you need someone to drive an offense from scratch for himself and everybody else, he is going to be the better option. But I like the idea of just having this player who has everyone gets annoyed with his shot selection, but I like that there's this 7'9" player who could just pull up off the dribble from 3 with 19 seconds left on the shot clock, and you're not sure that he's going to miss. Couple that with, if we give him spacing or just as a play finisher, like he is going to annihilate people, and he might just be the best defensive player on the planet. I think I lean Wembanyama here, but it's tough because of the age of Edwards, and he's really fucking good. And look, his own defensive contributions at his specific position, those are super valuable. I would argue, especially come playoff time.
Yeah. Where you need him to shut that guy down and also be your leading scorer. Here, okay. As we're talking it out, it's like we're worried about Edwards. Like Edwards is going to get better. Like, aren't we dead certain that Wembanyama is going to get better? And if it's like, is it close today? I think you could say it's pretty close today, right now. I think I have to go Wemby because it feels like the growth potential is just higher than it is for Edwards. And Edwards is that if it's close, I think that breaks the tie. But like Edwards is, and it's like there's some mystery box, but appeal with Wemby, because it's like, what if he's not actually a shooting guard? What if he gets a little stronger and he also just, leads the league in post up points per play or something at some point? Like, I don't know. I guess I go Wemby, but like, I can't do that without acknowledging I think Edwards is just going to be one of the 5 or 10 best players in the league for much more than the next 5 years.
Does it change if we kind of break this down into, if it was 2 separate categories where you already have a star on your team? Would you then prefer to have Edwards or Victor Wembanyama on your team? A star not at their position.
If it's like an offensive star, like a first option, like a big, like a 2-way wing type thing, like a Tatum or something.
Right. Or even let's go with both. Like, could there be like a guard, like a floor general type too, to where it's okay, Darius Garland is on your team, or because we're saying that both of these guys need someone who's going to be more of a primary playmaker.
Yeah.
I don't know why Darius Garland, maybe because we talked about him the episode was the first one that came to mind, but.
Well, I would say if in that hypothetical, I think Wembanyama is the pick because you're just going to have one of the best defenses in the league, provided you have like adequate talent around him. Whereas with
now,
Edwards,
if it was Tatum, would that open the door to shift to Edwards at all?
No, I was going to pick Wembanyama if you'd granted me the Tatum hypothetical, I think.
I'll grant you with that. Now, then the second would be you're starting a team from scratch and you're just trying to pick who you're building around for the next 5 years. Like, they are going to be your best player.
Yeah. Well, that is what this exercise kind of is. I think so. If you take Edwards, you're just like, well, we have our number one option and he's going to guard and feels like a good leader and all this other stuff. So here's the thing. You're in great shape either way.
Right.
It's looking pretty good if these are your 2 choices. I think I'm going to blanket this and just go Wemby. And try not to overthink it. Like I feel like it would be inconsistent to walk back all the like ridiculous things we've said about him and not choose him.
I agree with you.
Oh, Dan via Yoho, Bam Adebayo or Lauri Markkanen.
This one's tough. I think I'm gonna go with Bam Adebayo because I do believe that he is one of the Wembanyama exists, so he's no worse than like one of the 3 most valuable playoff defenders in the NBA. And I think it's him. And I think you could argue, do you trust that he can anchor an offense? And the answer should just be no. It's as like the best player. No, you're not going to have a good offense with Bam Adebayo. But like Lauri Markkanen's not going to generate, like he's not your traditional hub. Now he's used in such a unique way that he's just hyper efficient. He's big. He can put the ball on the deck a little bit. I don't like the gap between the 2 on offense insofar as it exists to a great degree. It's not large enough for me to take Lauri.
I think Bam is a better defensive player than Markkanen is an offensive player. And I think Bam is a better offensive player than Markkanen is a defensive player. And you know what I mean? Like his strength is stronger than Markkanen's strength. His weakness is less weak than Markkanen's weakness. And the playoff thing is like, we've just, Bam has been the defensive anchor on teams in the finals. Like if Markkanen becomes the offensive anchor on a team that makes the finals, this is a different conversation, but it's Bam for now.
Ooh, okay. Via Matty L. Grant, Cade Cunningham or Shaedon Sharpe for the next 5 years?
It's Cade. Sharpe, like I know I've like leaned towards the guy that like we don't know yet. What if like, imagine the upside here. Sharpe has shot it well in stretches, but overall he's been like a middling 3-point shooter, 34% for his career. Nuclear athlete, can score it, but just like I just don't think he's going to be as good or certainly as well-rounded as Cade. I mean, this is one of the easier ones in a while to me.
I think so too. Just I would boil it down to Cade Cunningham can be a primary table setter, and I don't think that's Shaedon Sharpe.
Yeah. I mean, okay, Denny Avdia, or this is via BJP, Denny Avdia or Bilal Coulibaly, really playing to our irrational.
BJP had a couple good, like hard. If you're a Hardwood Knocks listener, like that's why you come here. Yeah. He had a couple of these good ones. This might be recency bias, but like it does kind of prove that Denny Avdia maybe either isn't as scalable or you need to be more specific with the way you're going to use him because he's not faring well on offense important. Like he's still passing the ball. They're just not making shots off those. Still a really good defender, can be a good rebounder and push the pace. What are you comfortable saying though, long term, the next 5 years, he's going to be better at than Bilal Coulibaly? I think you can say passing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that you can say anything else.
Right. And if that's like, if passing is what is what Avdia is better at, that can still be true. And then Coulibaly, like that skill, like passing, is going to be like his fourth most important skill, you know?
Right.
Like, so I think it's Coulibaly, the athleticism, like the upside, the capacity to just be better than Avdia at everything. As soon as, like, I mean, he's basically better than him at everything at the moment. But yeah, I think it's Coulibaly. Just his ceiling is so much higher.
This year two, like we're not year 1.5. He's in whatever 1.25. Can we also take a moment to appreciate the way he looks in the picture? If you're watching on YouTube, like he looks like that should be an album cover, right?
He's just contemplating, like he's looking at the ceiling, wondering like how high.
Who am I gonna shut down tonight on defense? Is he was wondering. You wouldn't know that maybe by watching the Wizards defense. That's neither here nor there. Grant, oh, this one's for you via Mike Hernishin. RJ Barrett or Jordan Poole? Who are you taking for the next 5 years?
If you'd caught me, what year would it have been?
Probably 2022, fresh off the title, right?
Fresh off the title, pre-punch. I think I would have picked Poole for sure. that's how you measure. That's how I measure time. There's the before and the after. It's Barrett. Barrett is like, I mean, this year I've been so like tickled by what a ridiculously good passer he's become. How much fun it is to watch him facilitate as like a powerful, hard driving. I don't know. I guess he's a guard, but wing. Poole is an unserious defender. He's been better. Everyone's saying, "Oh, he's been better." It's like Poole is like the Trae Young
argument of like, "Oh, he's trying."
Right. He's awesome. Right. He's not actively doing damage as much on defense. Right. It's Barrett. Barrett is just a vastly more complete two-way player that seems to be getting better. And Poole is a bucket getter that does cool shit, but is ultimately like in a big role does not help you win. I don't think.
I'm trying to think if there is a case for Poole, like he shot the ball well from three on absurd volume. And I think would you trust him to run like you're off, like let's just use a traditional pick and roll in the half court. I think you could probably make the case that maybe Poole is better there as a passer, but it's Barrett just by the well-roundedness for the next 5 years without question.
Ooh. Oh, Dan via Adam, Anthony Black or Jaden Ivey?
This sucks. Like in a good way where I don't want to have to answer. I'm going to hate myself, aren't I? I'm going Anthony Black. I feel like Jaden Ivey's been far more plug and play. Feels like he's making quicker decisions. But just the defense that you get from Anthony Black and the fact that he doesn't need the ball ever necessarily on offense, if you can trust that he's going to become someone who can drill set threes, like the answer has to be him, where Jaden Ivey probably gives you a chance at more of like that driving offensive force, but even the Pistons don't turn to him for that in the way that you would think. And so both of these players are going to be viewed as, would you call them almost off guards in the sense then? Like, yeah, okay, they're going to do a bunch of ball handling, they'll run some of the offense. I'd probably prefer to bet on Anthony Black for the next 5 years.
This is a fascinating comparison. So Ivey has been significantly better in ways that make you more confident that he can fit next to Cade. Like he's making, I did a write-up on him a couple days ago. He's making like 47% of his catch and shoot threes, which is like, if he's a 40% catch and shoot 3-point shooter, Ivey, then it's like, all right, great. Because now the athleticism plays, now the secondary creation plays. Defensively, I think Black is just always going to be better, length, and just like he's wired to defend more so than Ivey is. The question with Black is just like, this goes back to like, can he make shots? Because if he can't, then it's like, I don't know, the Sean Livingston comparison always feels kind of interesting to me because the oversized point guard that just will never shoot threes effectively. Now Black made him last year, but he didn't take enough, and he's not making them this year. He's taking more. Can I pick Anthony Black with a deficiency potentially as glaring as his shooting? But then Ivey can't guard, man. I don't know. I think I probably go Ivey. We've seen more production. We've seen him in like a bigger role. and the athleticism is like pretty hard to deny. But I could definitely see Black being like a bigger piece of a winner because of all the other stuff that he does. But I'll still just go Ivy because we've seen more of him and I think the skill gains he's made as a shooter this year are pretty tantalizing.
For the next 5 years, who would you rather have via Brandon Ingram or Zach LaVine?
Well, here's the contract situation, and this is real tricky because we don't know what Ingram's going to make. We know what he wants, which will put him on the LaVine.
Are you going to run into the same issue with Zach LaVine in 2 years though, when his contract's up?
Maybe, but that's at least 2 years in. I think I go Ingram, younger, longer, willing to shoot threes. LaVine is just a straight up, like, he's a great scorer, like just an efficient, great shooter, high volume, all that stuff. Ingram, we're uncomfortable with his, preference for the long two and the pull up stuff. I think the youth, I guess you'd say Ingram is more durable. You probably would. And we know LaVine is making a ton. We think Ingram will make a ton, but that's not a given. So if we're not going to worry about the contract stuff, because it's kind of an unknown, I guess I go Ingram. Pretty close, though.
I know. I mean, you're saying youth. He's 27 versus 29-year-old Zach LaVine. I'm going to go Zach LaVine. My issue with Brandon Ingram, you put him on a team. Like, the Pelicans have run into this issue, is if you have to, I don't want to use the word marginalize him, but use him in different ways or have him be more complimentary. Is he capable of doing it? And the answer is, it's maybe. With Zach LaVine, we've seen him kind of scale up and down. And okay, the teams are always bad, but when you have him scale down, it's not for anyone who's really going to be just a lifeline to a really good team. And then with Brandon Ingram, it's, he's better suited for sure to be more of the featured option. I don't want Brandon Ingram to be my featured option on whatever team I'm trying to build or already have in place. I'm going with Zach LaVine here. I think there's the health risk, and he is, like you said, slightly older. But I like the idea of knowing he's going to come in, and if the goal is to put, like, you're not putting Zach LaVine on your team for the next 5 years with the intention of having him be even your second best player at this point. And so that's why I would go to him.
The problem is he's paid like your best player. That, I know I dumped you're kind of convincing me.
So that Brandon Ingram, I guess my point would be, like, Brandon Ingram at this exact price point for the next 5 years. So $36 million.
Yeah. You're right. The scalability is the real. I haven't done this yet, but I think you swayed me over to LaVine because even though he's overpaid and the durability, oh man, he's played so few games. Like, I just cannot play 65 games. You've swayed me. I'm gonna go LaVine. I'm gonna jump on board.
It's about time. You're a convert now.
Ooh, all right. This is from Nicole J. Kola. Brandon Podziemski or Jabari Smith Jr.?
Is this?
I feel like this is for me, but
right.
Go ahead.
I'm going to go with Jabari. I know the offense can be all over the place, but the things he can do defensively are nasty. Mm-hmm. And if you have him, like, he could play center. I know that he's played, I think, a fewer share of his minutes have come there compared to last year, but that's only because, like, Alperen and Sengun exists and they feel compelled, like, okay, we're going to get Steven Adams minutes. I'm going Jabari, and it's pretty comfortable for me. I do worry because Jabari likes to, not that I want to use Brandon Ingram as an analog, but he wants to take those difficult 2-pointers. Like, you could see it in him. You could see him try it, but, like, you could just envision him as being a pick and pop or pick and roll big if he doesn't, like, become the 90th percentile outcome of what we thought he could be offensively coming into the league.
Yeah, I go Jabari as well. And this is, like, I mean, Podziemski, just the shooting and inability to create space and be a threat as a scorer this year is, like, this is the wrong time to be doing this. If we did this a year ago, it would have been a more, like, legit conversation.
Or is it the right time because we have more information and now
right. Is he showing us, like, this is actually more like what his career is going to be like? Smith is just, like, he has more ways to succeed, right? Like, he can be a great defensive player, even if he sticks around 35% from three, or he could be a stretch center or he could guard a bunch of, it's just like, the pathways to success are more varied for him.
Your turn for me.
All right.
Oh, no, my turn for you.
Oh, go ahead. You read to me.
Holmgren or Jaren Jackson Jr.? This is from Oz 10.
This is fascinating because isn't Jaren Jackson Jr. kind of like what we hope Chet Holmgren settles in as at some point? Like, pretty close. Like, he's going to stretch it. He's going to be a good defender. More off ball.
Work with the ball in his hands. Yeah.
Yeah. Like the evolved version of Jaren Jackson, where it's like, he's could just take you off the dribble.
So we're hoping he could be Jaren Jackson Jr., but continue to rebound.
Right. But yeah, well, that's the difference. Like rebound and I probably have a higher volume of blocks, but what that means for defense is up for debate. I think it's probably okay. Here's the case. Chet may win defensive player of the year. Jaren Jackson has, and
Right.
is not at a point in his career where it's like, oh, he's fallen way off. And Jackson has evolved offensively in really like exciting ways that we hope Holmgren will, and has shown signs of being able to do. I think if the age gap were bigger, like if Jackson were 28, 29, it would just be Chet. But I think it's probably Jackson for the next 5 years. And then we've talked about it too. The injury stuff for Chet is concerning.
And I guess
not that Jackson's been a picture of health.
Right. But he's been more durable than Chet Holmgren, who has missed more games than he's played in at this point when you factor in the missed rookie season. I thought I was going to go into this because my whole thing with Jackson, though, is he, I mean, he did it last year, but like he's back under 30 minutes per game this year. He's gotten it in check, but like this is still someone who's going to foul a shit ton. He's still at 4 fouls per 36 minutes. I'm going to go Chet. You know what? Okay. I think Jaren Jackson Jr. is too complimentary in the grand scheme of things to where the higher end outcome for Chet, I will bet on that, but the durability, and then also I'm going to trust Chet's rebounding more. And I kind of thought the positional malleability it does probably still work in Jackson's favor, but I wouldn't hesitate to play Chet alongside Isaiah Hartenstein if they're ever available together. And like, even I think you can make the case like Chet can be like not any role, but Jaren Jackson Jr. is in his best defensive role, I think, when he's not the primary big. The fact that Chet can be in his best role as the primary big, but also work alongside another big, I think that's easier to work back from, whether you're viewing him as your best player, second best player, or whatever.
It makes me uncomfortable that I picked Chet over Mobley, and now I'm taking Jackson over Chet. But it's just like
Jackson's good. Like Jackson's really good.
That's the thing. Like I think it's a good outcome if Chet is as productive on both ends as Jackson has been. You know, that's kind of where I land.
The shit's fucked up.
This is 5 years. Get out of here. LaMelo Ball or Steph Curry from Pito Lab.
Could the answer be Steph Curry? Do we want him at age, what is that, 42 in 5 years?
Yeah, so he'll turn 37 in March, I think. So yeah.
So 42, 41.
You got it. You're getting his age. If we're counting this year, you're getting age 36 through 41 seasons out of Steph.
If you're concerned about, why am I thinking so hard about this? Give me Steph.
Yeah, I think that's right. Because you're getting this year, and he'll be fine next year, and probably the year after. And then he scales.
And then probably the year after that, and then most likely
he scales great, right? Like if as he declines, it's like, well, he's still a 5-alarm fire. Like you're never. How old does he have to be for a defense to not be like singularly focused on don't let him shoot? You know.
LaMelo's 23, so we're just saying that.
Well, who's going to be the better defender? Like Steph at 41 is probably a better defender than LaMelo
that gets into
right now.
Who's going to compete? And we know I'm going Steph. Yeah, that's so weird, but it's the answer. That was an interesting one, though.
Oh, okay. Here we go.
Okay, Durant, Trae Young or Damian Lillard next 5 years via Oz 10. So Oz 10 had some good ones.
Yeah, this is pretty strictly an age question. And like I'm not the biggest Trae Young fan, but I think post Portland, how different is Dame from Trae Young really? Like in terms of like what he brings and doesn't bring to a team. And so them being like fairly comparable at the moment to me just skews toward like, I think how many really good years does Dame have left? I mean, we just talked up Steph like going into his 40s. So
Dame's game does feel like it should be able offensively will age well, but he is someone who is, I mean, now he is Giannis and Brook, but I'm like saying Steph has Draymond Green and it's all right, but he's also had like, look at some of the players that have been around him. So the answer has I think it just comes down to the age difference here, if anything.
I think so too. I think it's Trae for that reason.
Next up, this is yours to give to me.
Christian Brown from Real Syrup. Christian Brown or Josh Giddey? Easy one.
Is this like a thing? It's Christian Brown, right? Christian Brown might win Most Improved Player this year. I don't think he will, but he might finish in the top 3. I will say the biggest. We grew to appreciate Christian Brown's defense even more last year because of what we saw from him in the playoffs. They've experimented with more ball handling from him, and I kind of wish those reps were going to Peyton Watson, who I think is the higher ceiling, but the answer is Christian Brown for me. I think he's more plug and play. He's the better defender. I don't even know what the case would be for Josh Giddey at this point. Like the Bulls don't even give him consistent minutes.
Yeah, I mean, it's just divorce it. It's like the player type. Like what what is the theory of building a winning team with Josh Giddey, like as a key piece? Like it's
Look at
just
this picture. Even Kobe White behind Josh Giddey's about to pick Christian Brown. You can see it on his face.
yeah, it's Brown. That's easy. Brown is like, it's not like if Giddey were, I think a couple years ago when it seemed like Giddey might just be the walking triple double, like, oh, he'll be okay on defense. Like it's Brown. It's pretty easy.
Oh, I'm glad I give this one to you. Via Adam, Trace Jackson Davis or Yves Missi?
I mean, I'm too biased. Like, I don't think either of these guys is a high end starter going forward. I don't know. I have to concede, having seen about 10 times as much action from Trace Jackson Davis as Yves Missi. Jackson Davis is like an effective, like good enough athletic, undersized center to be in the league for a long time. Missi, I guess you'd say, just has the more better shot blocker, maybe more athletic. Like I just go Trace Jackson Davis, decent passer. Like I think he's a
really good passer. TJ
if undersized big.
I think what's interesting is that I think Trace Jackson Davis probably needs to have a very specific front court partner alongside him, even if it's not going to be Draymond.
Mm-hmm.
I mean TJD, but Yves Missi, just the force he plays with, the shot blocking stuff. He's definitely, in terms of scoring, I think he's the more dynamic offensive prospect.
Yeah,
but that's close. He's turned some heads this year. So I'll go TJD. I'll lean him slightly.
Mitchell Robinson. This is via BJP. Mitchell Robinson or Robert Williams III?
I'm going to go with, I don't even need a preamble here. It's Robert Williams III, because you don't get to say that, well, the health concerns, right? Look at what's Mitchell Robinson doing right now. And I think give me the more dynamic offensive player who, if they're both at full strength, is Robert Williams III also the more dynamic defensive player then too?
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
I'll ask you this. Would you rather get 18 minutes per game of Robert Williams III or 26 minutes per game of Mitchell Robinson? And I'm going to take the former.
That's right. I think we are talking about someone that like this is a backup, right? This is a backup center that you hope you're going to get 50 games out of, for a few minutes. And I think the offensive rebounding from Robinson is, was like a real swing skill for some of the best stretches the Knicks had. But I think Williams can just do more. Again, the health question is like, I don't know. These guys are both going to barely play, but I'll go Williams.
Ooh, okay, Grant. Via Mike Hernishin, Dorian Finney-Smith or Najee Marshall for the next 5 years?
I mean, Marshall's on a heater right now, so that helps offensively. I think it's Marshall, and that's a lot of that's the age. A lot of that is this latest stretch of shooting for him has been really interesting. I mean, they both play really hard, so that would normally be something you just say, "Oh, Marshall plays so hard," but Finney-Smith is right there.
Dorian Finney-Smith is going to be 32 in May.
It's kind of like the young version of DFS and the current one, and I'll just take the young one.
I will say, I think Dorian Finney-Smith is just the better shooter. It's funny that we're talking about both Mavericks here, basically, since that's where Dorian Finney-Smith came from. I trust Dorian Finney-Smith more as a shooter, because even with his recent stretch, Najee Marshall's still under 30% this year. Yeah. He's only been above 35% once, but he's younger. I think he's just as versatile, if not more so defensively, and there are more ball skills there. Now, you don't necessarily want to put it outside of transition in his hands a ton.
Yeah.
The age difference that just makes up the gap for me.
It's kind of similar archetypes, but yeah, I think it's Marshall for the age reason.
Oh, this is sinister.
This is not hard for me. Is this
yours? So
great. DeJounte Murray, Dan, from Nicole Chekolev, or Derek White?
I think it's Derek White, right? DeJounte Murray can definitely steer the offense on his own more, but like Derek White does literally everything else better.
Well, and it's like the offense is kind of close because White is such a plus shooter, which
has only happened in like the past 3 years, right? Maybe
you wouldn't. Yeah, if it's like who's gonna. I don't know. Well, here's the thing. What Murray is an on-ball point guard, right? Like that's what he does. Like I think if White had that role, you probably wouldn't notice the difference. Like I think White can do in a different way. I think White is smart enough in the pick and roll and unselfish enough to be good at that. It's just that like he's a superstar in the different role that he plays for the Celtics. Like I just think White, you said it best. White's just better at basically everything.
They're close enough in age. Murray's 28. Derek White is 30. We know what contracts they're going to be on basically through this entire window. Yeah, Derek White. Ooh, okay. Wow.
Well,
Via Yo. Holy shit. Tari Eason or Cooper Flag?
I mean, so Eason has been phenomenal this year. Just elite, disruptive defensive player, changes games without scoring, but can score. It's still Cooper Flag because if there was a draft today, Cooper Flag would be taken ahead of Tari Eason. Like, I just don't care. You get the rookie scale control of Eason, of Flag, which you have now with Eason, but he's closer to the end of that. It's just like, I don't know. Like, this is really interesting, but like, it's a potential, I don't know what percentage chance you put on it, but a potential like super duper star versus a player who's I think it will be a very good starter, albeit like a niche guy for a long time.
I get worried because people just want to compare Cooper Flag to Andre Karolinko. And if I'm thinking top 2, top 3 pick, I want someone. Andre Karolinko was great. I want someone better than him substantially in those slots. But like just the idea of having more ball skills than Tari Eason, you're going to be concerned about the shooting. I honestly think it might be closer than, or maybe I'm making it too close. I'll go Cooper Flag as well, though.
If you think he's Kirilenko, then we can have a conversation. If you think it's actually Kevin Garnett, then conversation over. And if he's anywhere between there, closer to the Garnett side, it's also over, I think.
This one's yours.
Dan Bennett via Adam. Benedict Mathurin or Colin Sexton?
Is it wrong that this is easy for me? Colin Sexton all the way. I think he's not a traditional floor general, but hey, guess what? Benedict Mathurin isn't either. And I think the problems you run into with Benedict Mathurin are kind of the same as ever. Do I think he's more scalable offensively than we thought? Sure. But like, this isn't someone who can defend or rebound at a high clip relative to what his position is going to be, where Colin Sexton, you can consider him a 1. You're going to want maybe some more playmaking around him. I think he's easier to fit. First of all, I don't want any of these guys being my best player, but I think he's easier to fit on a good team than Benedict Mathurin. Like, just Colin Sexton, his playmaking on drives is good enough. It's better than Mathurin's now, I would say. Defensively, Mathurin's probably better, but the bar is not high. And look, if Mathurin rebounded a little bit more, maybe I'd feel better, but it's Sexton for me.
Sexton's a better player right now. Can do more of Mathurin's definitely not a point guard, but Sexton sort of also isn't either. Sexton's a very bad defender. Mathurin
22, which is the big one.
So here's the thing. We're kind of, I feel like I've been lower on Mathurin. Neither of us has been high on him, but I feel like I've been lower. I'm leaning Mathurin because of the youth.
Well, I just looked it up. Do you know how old Colin Sexton is?
What is he, like 25?
Yeah, he's about to turn 26. So it's not. Give me Sexton. This is honestly, it's comfortable for me.
It's harder for me. I think I go Mathurin. 3 years is or what is it? No, it's more than 3 years. How old's Mathurin? Is he 22?
Yeah.
Okay. I think the foul drawing for Mathurin is really intriguing. Okay. I guess if you think Sexton can be your point guard in a pinch, which he sort of has been, I just don't know how good he's been at it. I think I'm going to go Mathurin. It's very close though.
Ty Jerome for the next 5 years or Peyton Pritchard?
I mean, this Ty Jerome season has been insane. Like, I don't know if he's still leading the league in 3-point shooting, but it's probably still over 50%. And he has not missed a floater all year and has been good defensively. And so I think I have, and Pritchard has taken a leap too, like as double-digit scorer, making threes.
He's definitely a better passer.
I have to trust that. I can't, but I don't know how much longer I'd need to see Ty Jerome do this to change my opinion. I just know it hasn't been long enough. So I'll go Pritchard. Just because Ty Jerome has probably been better, even though Pritchard has been the best he's been this season. But Pritchard's been some version of this for a while, and Ty Jerome has never been anything close to this. So I'll go Pritchard.
I'm going to go with Ty Jerome. I don't feel great about it because two of the things that I think, I guess Peyton Pritchard's 27. He's not super young. He's going to be 27. And Ty Jerome is going to be 28. I'm going Ty Jerome. I think the biggest cause for pause for me, I'm going to go with the higher ceiling player who doesn't need to dominate. Like he could be plug or play, but Peyton Pritchard has like 3 more years left on a super cheap deal. And I'm very curious to see what Ty Jerome gets in free agency this coming summer.
Is someone going to say Ty Jerome is our starter, like, and pay him that way?
What does that mean? Like, if you told me it's Ty Jerome he's going to stay healthy and you're paying him what, 15 million, I'm probably still picking Ty Jerome.
Okay.
But if you think someone's going to come over the top and just get weird and offer 20 or something, I mean,
I just need to see Ty Jerome play more than 50 games in a season at some point and be good, which is not
backstory
happening.
on this one though, Grant. Thanksgiving night, I put this together for you all. You're welcome. Putting in work. I took an edible after I was done.
Sure.
And for some reason, as soon as it kicked in, I had this like impulse to double check something about Diabate's offensive rebounding. So I went and was looking at it. I think I lean him here. I know Jalen Smith brings the floor spacing element, but like Diabate's proven to be he's been proven to be a serviceable big. You just look at the Hornets are generating like 18.2 second chance opportunities per 100 possessions when he's on the court. That drops down to like 12.1 when he's off the court. They are rebounding, Grant, 39% of their missed threes with Musa as their 5. And then when he's off the court, that falls to 25. I like that out of a big who I think can do more of the traditional, my point being the traditional big man stuff than Jalen Smith can. I think that Musa's the better rim protector as well. But this is what I was thinking about while I was stoned on Thanksgiving night. This is the one that was keeping me up, apparently.
This is so, I mean, Smith has the like, oh, he can shoot it as a big guy. So that, I don't know if I'd call that that's his like defining skill, would you say, right? Like he's a big guy that can space and like get him up quick with volume and fairly accurate, has been very accurate in small roles. Diabate is just like hustles really hard and is awesome at getting offensive rebounds. And I mean, like he's shooting 36% from the foul line this year. He's never been over 65% in the previous 2 seasons. Tiny samples, but like, what's this dude going to do other than chase down offensive boards? And how valuable is that? I think I still
Mitchell Robinson got like 14 million a year.
I still lean Diabate because like I think we've seen enough evidence to suggest that Jalen Smith's ability to hit the occasional 3 like doesn't actually matter, and he's bounced between 3 teams already, and it's not enough to like make him a super valuable piece. From Hayden and Sons, Jaden Ivey or Amen Thompson?
This is easy, Amen Thompson, right?
No doubt.
I know we have questions about shooting for Amen Thompson, but we had questions about Jaden Ivey shooting until this year, and Amen Thompson just the playmaker in transition. He's the defensive terror, and I think he's someone who you could move. Like if you need him to play the 1 at some point, I think he might be able to do it. But if you need him to play the 2, 3, or 4, we also know that he could do it.
I would say this is maybe not the best time to say it because Ivy won a game the other day and was really good, including the buzzer beater.
Yeah, but you know what, Grant? You didn't bring that up for Anthony Black when it was Anthony Black versus Jaden Ivey.
I'm a selective buzzer beater citer. Thompson takes games over, and it doesn't often have much to do with scoring. Like he really does just become the most influential player on the court because of his athleticism and defense, and anything else after that is gravy. And I do think he is maybe one of the most exciting test cases for like, can you teach someone to shoot? Because if he can shoot it, like we're done. He's one of the best 2-way players in the league.
If he can't, you're still taking him though?
Yeah.
Next up. Oh, this is going to be a nice little choice. Wow. This is like pitting us against each other. Deuce McBride or Brandon Pajemski? This one comes from Mike Hernishin again.
I need to look up what Deuce is shooting. Cause that kind of, and he's probably, well, is he the better defender? Pods is like a different kind of defender because he'll just stand in there and take charge.
No, Deuce McBride is let's not do this. He's the better defender.
He's probably the better defender. But what's his plus minus? You know, well, how is he influencing winning with intangibles?
The answer has to be Pods, right? Because Deuce basically is going to be a 3-and-D off guard.
And like undersized at that, right? So like, but you feel okay with Deuce on like wing size guys, or is he more of a guarding 1-2 guy?
I don't feel comfortable with him guarding wing size guys. Yeah. No,
I don't feel comfortable with Pods guarding like almost anybody in a standstill situation. Like he's okay and he'll make the right decision, but I think it's Pajemski, but it's not like, I mean, if Pajemski can't score, if he can't be someone, if this is what he is offensively, then I don't know, man. Like it's probably McBride. I guess this is just a bet on he can't be this bad offensively forever.
Okay.
All right, Dan. Jalen Johnson, who's taken leap number 2 in a row, or Franz Wagner, who has taken his own leap this year. This is from Brian Toporek.
It's Franz Wagner for me. I mean, he's averaging 37 points per 100 possessions when Paolo's off the floor and still connecting on over 50% of his twos during that time. I don't know if he'll ever drive like a regularly efficient offense on his own as the number one or the number two, but Jalen Johnson I don't even think he has close to the level of self-create. Like there's good passing there, but like Franz Wagner passes as like the jump starter initiator of an offense. I think by the way, he's averaging like 10 assists per 100 possessions without Paolo on the court. To Jalen Johnson's credit, the last time I checked, he was at 9 assists per 100 without Trey, but it's just different. I'm going to go with someone who has the better chance of being the offensive initiator, but I do think you could make the case that Johnson's more plug and play offensively. I think Franz Wagner, though, currently has a decided, like if you're trying to pick the better defender right now or who you trust to build your, like help build your defense, I'm going with Franz.
I think I go with Franz too. This would have been a fascinating conversation to have before the season started. Because when the contract seems so like, oh, I don't know about that for Franz. I think it's Franz. I think his facility as like a basically a first option, like singular creator, is pretty impressive. And like the shooting questions that he has, he's 35% this year. Johnson's are kind of the same. Like they're both pretty comparable, like career wise from three. So like, give me Franz a little better at getting to the foul line, the facilitation. I think it's Franz. Is there a case for Johnson? Is it just like, oh, the athleticism and the upside seems higher because Franz is like, I don't know, not going to guard centers or what, like that kind of thing.
I think, could you also just look at the contract and feel more comfortable at some point getting what you're getting from Jalen Johnson at 25 a year versus Franz, who is, I mean, I don't think he'll get the super max, but I guess he's not outside the realm of all NBA possibility right now. That might be the only factor I would consider harping on.
I think it's Franz. I think that's right. Is this media? I'm going to read this.
And I know it's the last one.
Oh, okay. This is via BJP. Choose a twin, Caleb Martin or Cody Martin.
Oh, I was hoping it was a Plumlee. Are there any twins that are Plumlees? And like, are they twins? Who knows?
I don't know.
So
no, they're not twins. Anyway, the Lopez's, we got some twins there. The Morrises.
I think it's Cody's such a health risk, but I think he's the better player. And I'll say this, before there was Caleb Martin, like there was a reason that he wasn't on the Hornets anymore. It's because he wasn't Cody Martin. And I think
they hit their quota. They could only keep one. Was that
it? I think I like. I know you just can't cast off health here. Greg, could you let me know what the difference in age between the two is?
It's like a minute. I don't know. Usually it's right around there.
So I'm gonna go with Cody. I actually think he's more of the like complete versatile player than Caleb Martin is. And we just haven't seen it as much because of the health. And he's also been on some pretty bad Hornets teams. I'm going to go with Cody Martin here. Who are you taking?
I'm going Caleb. A couple of reasons. Better career shooter. And two, like have seen him make a real difference on a winning team. Like that's not to say Cody couldn't have done exactly the same thing. Like it's just, and maybe it was Cody for all we know, for those Heat teams that were in the finals. Like probably, who knows if they switched. I think it's Caleb. Like, it's kind of annoying a lot. So like take the Lopez's, for example, this happened with the Morrises where one was like Markieff was the better Morris for a minute. And then Marcus overtook him. And then Markieff had a moment and I'm not sure where ultimately it ended up. Like these two guys seem really similar. And I would say like Caleb probably is regarded as the better one because he was more prominent, like on some good Heat teams. But like, what do you distinguish between the two? Like what's the difference? It's harder. Like usually twins, it's like one or the other is like discernibly better. But these guys are like among the closest set of twins I can remember. The Thompsons, like Amen's ahead of Asar right now, but who knows? Like they're also kind of similar. I'll go Caleb just to split it down the middle. This was fun. I mean, thanks everybody that threw these out to us because left to our own devices, I think we would have just not thought of like 90% of these. So I think that was a good use of the crowd.
I have nothing else. Do you have anything else? Or are you ready to take us out of here?
That's it. Thanks everybody, especially those that, we should say sorry if we didn't pick yours because there were a lot of submissions. We just kind of went with some percentage of them. But thanks for the submissions. Thanks everyone for listening, for watching. Please remember, rate, review, subscribe wherever you're listening to your podcast. If you see this on YouTube, Make sure you're subscribed there. Thumbs up in the comments. Comment, talk to us. Like, I'm sure you diverge from our opinions on several of these. So let us know. Make a good argument for why we were wrong on one or several. Join our Discord. That is where a lot of these submissions came from. Links for that in the YouTube and podcast description. As Dan mentioned at the top, there's also 20% off. We got a special merch deal going right now. If you would like
code sicko mode, promo code sicko mode, get outfitted in all the latest Hardwood Knocks gear. If you already have them, they make great gifts for kids.
Tis the season.
Indoctrinate them.
Tis the season. Let's go. Yeah, put your kids in them if you got kids. That's
turned his kids into a human billboard for
walking billboards. I send them to school, and kids are like, "What's Hardwood Knocks?" And they're like, "You're not cool enough to know. Don't worry about it." And then it goes viral. Marketing genius. Yeah, that's gonna do it. I think I covered everything. Shouts out Frank Ntilikina. Apologies, Jared Allen.